Hey, so real quick, we are just going to learn a little more about narrator and point of view. So, we have a story down here. We got a plot that's going on. So, every single author who writes a story has to think to themselves, who is going to tell this story? That is the term that we call narrator. Narrator is the term that means who is telling the story. So, we have a narrator. Every author has to decide what type of narrator that they want to have. Most stories have one of two types of narrator, either first person or third person. This is what we call point of view. Point of view means who is seeing the story. Whose eyes are you seeing the story through? Just kind of like if you stand at your bedroom window, you have a different point of view than if you're standing on the outside of your house. How are you seeing that house? How are you seeing the world around you? That's the same thing when we talk about narrator and point of view in fiction. So, here is my plot again. Here's my story. We are going to talk about first person point of view first. So, if you can see, I got my narrator right here. My narrator is inside my plot. In first person point of view, the narrator is actually a character in the story. So, what does it mean if you have a first person point of view from your narrator? Well, first off, the narrator, since they're a character in the story and they're telling the story, they're going to use pronouns like I and me. I walked to the store. She liked me, because they are the ones telling the story. That's your first tip-off that you have a first-person narrator. The next thing that you have to think about is the first-person narrator only knows his or her own personal feelings. We can't see inside the heads of other people, and so this narrator, since they're a character in the story, really don't know what's going on inside the heads of other characters, only themselves. So that means that you, the reader, is limited by what the narrator knows. If something happens in the plot of the story and the narrator is not there, you, the reader, are limited by what the narrator knows. You can't know everything in a story with first-person narrator. So, the other type of narrator that we have is third person. With third person point of view, it means that it is someone outside the story that is the narrator. It is not a character. So you can see here that we have our plot here, and here's our narrator. Our narrator is outside the story, looking into the story. So you can see their point of view, instead of being limited by being inside here and only being able to see parts, the third person narrator is on the outside, and they can see the whole entire plot. So, what does it mean if you have a third-person narrator? Well, first, the narrator is not a character. Also, because they're not a character, they're going to use pronouns like he, she, and they to refer to characters in the story. And for you as a reader, the narrator now knows a lot. Their point of view is a lot better than a character who's standing in here. So they're going to know the thoughts and feelings, usually, of most characters in the story, if not all of them, and know what's happening kind of everywhere. So it's a lot easier for you as the reader to know what's going on in the plot. So just to review, in this video we talked about narrator, which is the person that is telling the story. We also talked about point of view. How is that narrator telling the story? If it's a first-person narrator, it's a character in the story, and you, the reader, are limited by what that character knows and sees. And a third-person point of view is when the narrator is outside the story, not a character, and they can know and see into a lot more thoughts and feelings and actions in the plot.